Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield presents Let's See What's Out There, a weekly video stream and podcast currently focused on Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is available to watch on Paramount Plus. My name's Keith Isles, and as ever I am joined by
Pete Mealy.
And we are both film and television enthusiasts, and in today's episode we are going to have a spoiler-filled conversation around episode 5 of season 2, entitled Charades, or Charades, depending on where you come from. So we will be going into full-on spoilers for that, as well as many things that have already happened in this season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. If it's your first time here and you're catching us, then welcome. Please do consider giving us a thumbs up and a like if you enjoy this kind of content, and having a look at what else we do on the channel. If you're listening to us on a podcast, consider giving us a review, and that always helps the channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, we're currently at about 700 subscribers, and we would love to get to that coveted 1,000 subscribers that YouTube wants. So if you get any value or entertainment out of this whatsoever, please consider doing that. I do want to point out it's not just about Star Trek on this channel. We cover lots of film and television franchises, series, things of that nature. We've just recently done one on the new Mission Impossible film, for example. Also, as the name of this channel suggests, we also look at home media, which can include physical media, Blu-ray, DVD, 4K, UHD, that sort of thing. One thing I've noticed that YouTube have started doing, though, is they've started separating the videos from the streams. Streams now appear under live, and videos obviously under videos, and then there's playlists and whatever. So to find everything we're doing, you might need to click on some of those tabs. Just thought I'd point that out. But yeah, as I said, please subscribe, hit the notification bell icon, just stay up to date with what we're doing. So that's enough preamble out of the way. Pete, we're getting this one out quite quickly because we're trying to sort of be a bit faster of getting these episodes released before we hear any other reviews or whatever. I'm slightly confused on what the schedule here in the UK is for Paramount Plus, because I always thought these dropped on a Friday, but I've had a few of them appear to drop on a Thursday, so it's a little bit sort of seems a bit inconsistent. What day do you get them in the US?
I think Thursday, but to be honest, I don't check Wednesday.
Right.
I mean, I just always go Thursday.
Right. Yeah. No, it's just it's probably just me being an idiot, but sometimes they seem to crop up earlier than I'm expecting. But anyway, we do have, as I said, we are going to do spoilers in this show. We do have a sort of loose agenda that we sort of stick to as well. So we do a quick summary of the episode. We look at some of the behind the scenes and production credits. We have a little bit of fun just looking at Easter eggs and relations to other Trek, etc. We have some speculation, and then we really get into our thoughts and nitpicks. And we have a rank rating system that we use for this. God, that's hard to say fast. But without further ado, I've done enough talking already. So, Pete, hit it.
The Enterprise is taking the slow boat to Vulcan so that everyone can relax for a bit. Spock is getting ready to perform some ceremonial rituals as the next step in his engagement to T'Pring. Nurse Chapel is prepping for her interview with the Vulcan Science Academy for a 2-month-long fellowship, and they're both working on keeping their relationship awkward. And it gets more awkward as they both have to share a shuttlecraft to explore an ancient civilization's moon. As they get close, there's an anomaly. The shuttlecraft is crashing. Brace for impact. Spock awakes feeling strange. They're back on the Enterprise. And oddly, everyone is perfectly fine. The anomaly healed them and repaired their ship, but they made Spock fully human. The anomaly conveniently left a cell phone number, so we call and get the explanation that this incredibly advanced civilization is very sorry for the trouble, but they can't be bothered to learn about hybrids, so they made Spock look like Chapel, because. Thank you, goodbye. They're apparently also made Spock a teenager, so we get a montage of him behaving strangely. Meanwhile, Chapel has her interview and it goes about as well as a child applying for a position at a prestigious university. Then the screwball antics are pumped to 11 when Spock's mom shows up and announces that the Vulcans are coming now for the ceremonial rituals. Her mother's intuition allows her to see through Spock's knit cap he was using to hide his condition, and she quickly decides to train her son how to fake his way through the ceremony because the best thing about humans is their ability to lie. The medical team is working on reversing the damage, but they can't get it to work, so Chapel, Uhura, and Ortegas get back in the shuttle, go right into the anomaly, and explain that they need Spock back. Please help us science the science. The fix comes just as Spock has successfully faked his way through the ceremonies with some help from his mom and T'Pring, even though T'Pring knows nothing about the situation. Spock and co. thought it best to hide it from her as she had her hands full with her mother, who disapproves of Spock as a mate because of his human side. Dear old mom has been salty the whole time, and just as the ceremony winds down, she expresses how relieved she is. Spock has passed the ceremonial tests, and that is obviously not something a human could ever do, so his genetics can't be all that bad. But this is too much of a slight for Spock, who rips off his fake ears, and oh yeah, I was a human the whole time. To wrap up this comedy of errors, Spock finds that exploring his human side deepened his relationship with his mother. He sees more clearly the prejudice she had to deal with living in Vulcan, and it drives a wedge between him and T'Pring because she thought that Spock would have shared his struggles with her, and it hurts to see him share it with everyone on the Enterprise. We quickly cut back to Chapel in the Vulcan Science Academy. They formally decline her application. She says she doesn't care. She's doing better science than they could ever imagine. And then we cut to Chapel and Spock, who decide that it's time to explore their relationship in more physical ways. Credits.
Yes, Spock isn't the only one with mixed emotions on this. Before we get into all that, we'll have a look at the production and make it so. Alrighty, so this week's episode is co-written by showrunner Henry Alonso Myers and along with Catherine Lynn this time. Now, we've already talked about Henry in a previous episode, so please check that out. But I think Catherine is quite new to having episodes written by and being talked about. So just to have a look at her previous credits there, she was a producer on a show called Find Me in 2014 and an associate producer on the show Fear Incorporated in 2016 and was the executive producer on 3022 in 2019 before becoming part of the Star Trek Strange New Worlds team. Has been on the writing staff since the beginning of this season, in fact. So 5 credits to her name there, but actually shared sole, well, or should I say dual writing credit on this one with Henry. So that's Catherine Lynn. This episode was directed by Jordan Canning. So Jordan's credits from directing, they go back a little way, actually. So her credits start off back with short films in the early 2000s, moving into television, music videos, things of that nature. So the first television director, the first film director credits we had is We Were Wolves from 2014, and then went on to do 2 episodes of the TV series Real East Coast. then moved up to Saving Hope, directing on that. 23 episodes of Space Riders Division Earth. Burden of Truth TV series, couple of episodes there. The Detail, Nurses, Pretty Hard Cases, The Lake, 4 episodes of that TV show. The Drop, which brings us to Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And also future credits coming up include Fraggle Rock, Back to the Rock. So that could be interesting. So there's some credits there. We had quite a few guest stars, obviously, in this episode, but I thought I would single out this time, returning to play the role of Amanda Grayson. We have Mia Kirshner. Mia's roles go back. She's well known for parts in Not Another Teen Movie in 2001. The Black Dahlia in 2006, The Crow, City of Angels back in 1996, and playing the role of Mandy on 7 episodes of the, which season was that? It's 24. I'm just trying to remember which season that was. I can't find that out.
I'm not going to know, sorry.
But she was in 24 as well. So, but one of the reasons I thought I'd single her out here is because obviously she has previously played Amanda Grayson on 8 episodes of Star Trek Discovery. So good to see her back for that. And that really sort of covers today's Make It So section. All good, Pete?
All good, all good.
Time for a little drink then. Yeah?
Yeah.
Let's get some tea, coffee, whatever you've got, as long as it's hot. So this is where we look at Easter eggs, references, connections to Star Trek canon, you know, all of that sort of thing. Just a bit of fun. The usual disclaimer is this is not a comprehensive list. This is just things that we spotted while watching it. But there are YouTube channels out there that specialize in just this sort of thing if you want to dig further into it, which I tend to do after we've recorded these episodes and usually end up going, damn, I didn't spot that. Oh. But Pete, was there anything that sort of stuck out to you immediately?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't see anything.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Well, I have put together a fairly rushed slide. I'm not going to lie, but these were just nods that I sort of picked up. So the first one that I thought was a bit obvious to me was the Spock wearing the beanie hat. Not only was a piece of clever merchandising, because I'm sure that those blue beanies with the little Delta emblem on them will soon be available online and in shops and stuff. But I don't know whether I was reading too much into it, but I looked at this as a little bit of a reference to City on the Edge of Forever, that classic TOS episode where Kirk and Spock go back in time as Kirk falls in love with Edith Keeler, you know, the one. But Spock obviously has to hide the fact that he's got pointed ears, and he does so with a blue beanie hat. So I didn't know whether that was a deliberate reference, but I certainly thought it was a reference. So I thought that I'd point that out.
I think they did the same thing in that Cold Creek episode of Enterprise. Although that wasn't Spock.
Oh, right. Yes, they did. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Cold Creek. Good episode with the Vulcans in the 50s. Yeah. So that was good. We get mention of things like the Vulcan Science Academy, which has been, mentioned many times before. So that's nothing new. And I believe, I can't remember the name of this original series. I've got a feeling it's called The Naked Time, but it's been a long time since I've seen that. But in that, there is some reference to the fact that Spock and Nurse Chapel may have had some sort of history, or she certainly has some feelings for him that are mentioned in that episode. So again, we're sort of foreshadowing that and expanding on that story with younger versions of these characters. I kind of thought, wow, that's kind of a reference, I guess, to what's to come. And then obviously I've already mentioned Mia Kirshner coming to play Amanda Grayson. Of course, Amanda Grayson being Spock's human mother. She appeared in Journey to Babel, the original series, played by Jane Wyatt, who also reprised that role in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, with the Vulcan scenes at the beginning of the film there. She was, of course, played also by Winona Ryder in the Kelvin timeline Star Trek film, Star Trek 2009. Although I've always thought that I find Mia Kirshner sort of more believable as a younger version of Jane Wyatt than I actually did with Winona Ryder. It's to do with the eyes, I think. And also, of course, we get the T'Pring reprising her role as well in this. She will, of course, appear in Amok Time in the original series. And I've got a picture of the actress playing her in that show there as well. But yeah, I mean, I do feel like I was kind of clutching at straws a little bit. There was nothing particularly. Obviously, we did see Captain Pike wearing the sort of green wraparound, which he's wore once last season as well, which is kind of a bit of a reference to Kirk's alternative captain attire. But yeah, but that was it. I'm sure there are loads more, but I never spotted them. Although one thing was interesting, and again, I'm always trying to look for errors as well sometimes, and I don't know whether this is one, but this where they find this anomaly is round a moon near Vulcan. But I'm sure that Spock says in one of the original series thing that Vulcan has no moons. But I don't know. Again, might be grasping there.
Interesting.
Never mind about moons, Pete. Are you seeing any lights?
Oh wait, I wanted to mention. What was it? You triggered one a connection in my brain, and now it's gone. Damn. Oh yes, nasal suppressants.
Enterprise.
Are another Enterprise reference. Yes.
That's a very good one. Yes, because T'Pol makes very clear that Vulcans have a strong sense of smell, and humans we're kind of smelly apparently.
Yeah.
And especially our canines. I seem to remember Porthos, Archer's dog. She raised an eyebrow at. Yes. Nice one. I love it when Enterprise is referenced, because for those who haven't watched the show regularly, they don't know, Pete, that you and I have a huge love for Star Trek Enterprise, right?
Yeah, gigantic.
Prequels done right.
Prequels done right, exactly.
So,
shall we?
Go for it.
There are 4 lights.
So, speculation time. You got anything, Pete?
I don't have anything directly. I mean, it's this week's episode sort of took a turn for the lower decks style of Star Trek, I felt like. And so I keep waiting for the episode that's the lower decks crossover. And we'll see. Yeah.
No, I hear you. I've got nothing. Mine's slightly facetious, so I've put a map up there of the Star Trek galaxy, the explored galaxy, as far as the fictional Star Trek explored galaxy. And I'm just wondering if we're on episode 5 of only 10 here, and I'm just wondering whether they're actually going to explore any strange new worlds at some point, because everywhere we've been so far has been somewhere familiar, you know, or near somewhere familiar. Okay, we had an anomaly in this one, which was you know, a different entity or being or whatever, which I suppose is first contact and all that stuff, which is great. But you know, I just want this show to do what it says on the tin, and you know, the thing that's exciting about this is the episodic nature, that it can explore strange new worlds, but instead we're exploring strange facets of each character, which, don't get me wrong, is okay too. If we had 22 episodes in this season, I'd say fine. But knowing that we're already halfway through, yeah, I don't know. It's maybe that's just me, but yes. But no other speculation for you, not even a facetious one, no?
No, I mean, yeah, I think my lower decks comment was slightly facetious. We'll see how it goes.
Well, let's draw a line.
Yeah.
Okay, Pete, as always, because I'm a bit of a chatterbox, I'm going to let you go first.
So, I did mention, right, this episode felt like a Lower Decks episode, is sort of like how they handled it. It was zany and madcap, and there were like homages, I felt like, to a bunch of 80s and 90s sort of movie themes, right? Like, it was a little bit, I couldn't find the exact right ones, right? But I felt like, you know, Spock trying to fake his way through was a little bit like Weekend at Bernie's. You know, they're like trying to hide the fact that, you know, he's not dead, he's a human, right? And then when he ripped the ears off, it was, you know, basically Mrs. Doubtfire type reveal at the end. It's like, wow. And I just, it didn't work for me at all. And I just really hope that the episode goes back. I mean, there was some stuff in here that I was like, oh, that's got the seeds of Star Trekky ideas for me, you know, like Spock's mother and her difficulty living in a Vulcan world. I was like, yeah, right, like totally. There's stuff to explore there, and Spock exploring his human nature. There's stuff to explore there, but it didn't feel like this was done correctly or with any sort of style or panache, right? It just felt very slapdash, and yeah, this was a real miss for me.
Yeah, I hear you. For me, when I say mixed emotions, I am not exaggerating at all, because I went through this episode from face palming, rolling my eyes, cringing, laughing out loud, getting emotional. I went for a full spectrum, so I'm really torn on this, because part of me did appreciate what they were trying to do, and I found in certain places it even hit an emotional resonance with me, and it certainly did amuse me and make me laugh. I'm not going to say it didn't do that, but it also totally frustrated me at the same time. It's funny, I didn't think it was badly directed at all. I actually thought the direction and the performances in this were actually fine, but I just felt it was a mess. It was all over the place in terms of, I don't think it knew what it was trying to do tonally. And it's quite funny because, you know, I was trying to think how to sort of sum it all up, and obviously we'll break it down and go through the beats in a moment. But I almost felt like when I saw the last Fast and Furious movie, Fast X, yeah, which should be sort of Fast 10, fasten your seatbelts, whatever, you know. But when I went to that, I came out of it, and even though it was entertaining to a point, my first comment was, oh my God, these things have gone so ridiculous now that it's like it's written by a 12-year-old. That was, it kind of reminded me of when I was a kid playing with toy cars and action figures and sort of making it up as I went along and defying gravity and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And I sort of feel like this sort of Kurtzman Trek era, it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of like it's trying so hard to be sort of down with the kids that it's weird, because in some respects it totally ticks the box for Star Trek, like I said, with like last week's episode and whatever. But then in other things, it feels like it completely missed the point as well. So yeah, I don't know this. I mean, I'll be honest, Star Trek across the 60 years of, or nearly 60 years of Star Trek that we've had, always has different types of episodes. We've your courtroom dramas, your space battles, your time travel, all this sort of thing, and it's always had humorous episodes, right? So they've always had funny ones. I've never really been a fan of those. I've always liked my Star Trek fairly serious, with and the allegories and messages and maybe hints of humor here and there. But this one, yeah, it probably went too far for me, even though it made me laugh. But yeah, maybe we should go through it and we can start sort of tying it down. But I struggled big time with it, and I did find that, like Spock, my emotions were all over the place. So it was definitely doing some things that I appreciated, but then it was doing other things that I literally face palmed and did a Spock and shouted into the towel almost. So okay, let's sorry, I'm waffling. Let's break it down.
Okay. Yeah. I still don't get the Pike cooking.
Well, okay, yes. He seems to be spending more time in the kitchen of his massive quarters, which I know you have a problem with flames everywhere, right? But he seems to be spending more time in there than he does on the bridge, being a captain. I'm feeling that as well. And
so,
charming as it is, I mean, I've definitely got some sort of weird heterosexual man crush thing going on with Anson Mount and his wonderful Trek
100%.
quiff. Because everything he does, obviously his version of Pike is very different to Jeffrey Hunter, and even different to
Bruce Greenberg, right?
Bruce Greenwood's version as well.
Greenwood.
And I like everything he's doing. His comic timing as an actor is fantastic. The stuff he did in this made me howl with laughter, quite literally. But it's like, but this isn't what I really want to see Captain Pike doing. I want to see him, phaser in hand, exploring planets and stuff. But yeah, sorry, I feel like I cut you off there. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I was trying to think of a real world comparison that might equate to the cooking, and like all I could come up with is like people who insist on like making their own clothes and like weaving their own like wool, like not even making their own clothes, like or people, like I saw this guy on a social media site the other day who was like, this is my favorite outfit, and he put on like a traditional Scottish formal kilt that's like 30 yards of fabric, right? And it was like, it's such a versatile piece of clothing. And I was watching this and I was going, you absolute dolt. Like, no, pants are better, right? Than because they're faster, they use less materials, and like you're only wearing that to be a pretentious asshole, right? Excuse me, sorry. And I kind of feel like that attitude is how I would feel about someone insisting on using naturally grown herbs in the 23rd century when there's a replicator right there. I'd be like, no, this is faster and better and a better use of resources than growing your own. And like you saying that the taste is so much better when you can't even smell your own body odors, I feel like you might have a distorted sense of taste there. And so I kind of don't get the natural cooking thing, right? Like we sort of already tread over that in Next Generation with Riker, and I feel like it was perfectly done there because everyone's like, "Man, this is kind of terrible," right? And like, yes, replicated food is probably better. And anyway, that's that. Um, I will also disagree with you slightly on the Spock acting. I think you said that you thought Spock acted this perfectly, and I firmly disagree. I mean, I was looking for some sort of subtlety in Ethan Peck's performance, right? In the difference between a half human, half Vulcan, and a full human. Um, and I didn't see it. It just felt like he was waffling around, and when he needed to hit a joke, he hit the joke, and when he didn't, he was kind of lost. I know that I have no business critiquing. I'm just saying, like, as a fan, I was like,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
didn't work for me.
Well,
Um,
yeah. I mean, it's hard to believe, the character because this is the thing. I mean, okay, I guess the fan answer here is because they sort of rebuilt him as a human. That it was almost like that sort of personality reset thing. Um, because let's be honest, Spock in this time frame, you know, he's like 30 or whatever, 29, 30 by this point, and he's been on a 5-year mission already before this one. This is his second 5-year mission, right? With Pike. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know we had him smiling and stuff in the cage and whatever, but yeah, I don't know. It's just, you're right, he acted like a teenager, and and it did lead to some sort of funny things. I kind of like the awkward moment with him and Leanne and all this sort of thing, but yeah, it was it was too much.
I
It was hard to believe that this guy, you know in 7 years time is Leonard Nimoy in the original series. It's kind of yes. and,
I
and when the ladies were all trying to tell him how to be Vulcan, oh god, I was just kind of like, what?
yeah, I I didn't get it. I also I really I okay, two other things that annoyed me. So I'm making notes so I make sure I complain about everything. Um, Number one, I mentioned this last week as like a side thing that Captain Battelle is like 1 week a Starfleet captain, the next week a Starfleet prosecutor, and I'm like, that's a very strange job description. And I feel like they do it again this week, where 1 week Nurse Chapel is a nurse on a starship, and the next week she is applying for some sort of deep science research position with the Vulcan Science Academy. And
Yeah,
I like, I
they
maybe I'm sexist and small minded, but those things like are not lining up for me.
yeah,
And I don't understand how exploring liminal space relates to um uh you know medical treatment.
yeah,
I don't understand how that relates to what we got um yeah, last week with her
yeah,
talking about like healing injuries. Um,
yeah.
like it feels like a totally different branch of science to me.
Well,
Again,
let's
I'm
be
not
honest.
super smart.
I
Yeah.
mean, I know it's science fiction, but the science in this week's episode was total nonsense. Total nonsense.
Also,
And
yeah.
one of the things that, because they had sort of set some of that stuff with Chapel up, but what kind of bothered me here, and I love Jess Bush, who plays Nurse Chapel in this, but it did sort of annoy me when Dr. Mbenga, who's the chief medical officer on the Enterprise, is coming up with suggestions, and she's like, "No, you're wrong." Da, 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 da. And I sort of thought, really? The nurse is telling him, that his his theory is way off or whatever. I don't know. In terms of the writing, there had been no thought to any of this, especially with the whole, when we talk about the anomaly, the whole call center, the universal translator, I know, is what's translating it, but it did sort of, it was almost like speaking to an unhelpful call center, and they didn't take Spock back within his warranty or something, and it was like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. And like the fact that they're like, oh, we couldn't figure him out because he was different. I was like, so then why isn't his hair blonde, his skin much lighter, and why isn't he a woman? Like, I mean, like
Well, yeah, at least they didn't go there, I suppose. But you see,
honestly,
in terms
no,
of the
but like I would have preferred that. I think that
well,
might have been a more interesting
no,
discussion.
I agree,
Yeah.
because I was thinking about the funny episodes featuring T'Pring and whatever, and obviously we didn't cover every episode last season because of when it came out over here, but I found the body swap episode from last season, which was the Spock funny episode, much better executed than this. I don't know whether you remember that one. It's where Spock and T'Pring change, and again, both actors kind of nailed that, but also from a science fiction point of view and from a sort of continuity point of view, it didn't feel as jarring as this. It's kind of like, yeah. So I had that was all of it.
And then another thing, and maybe I'm being specious here, but like I also hated that the best part about humans is our ability to lie. And I was like, no, I don't think that's our best feature.
Hopefully not.
I don't. And it was framed like that like, oh, you're human now. I got to teach you how to lie so that you can succeed. And I was like, that's garbage.
Yeah,
that is absolute garbage. And it, yeah, I hated it.
Yeah. How did you feel about the Vulcan family stuff? The mother-in-law and the whipped father-in-law and all of that stuff.
That worked for me, because I, like we mentioned, I love Enterprise, and I feel like Enterprise did a lot of groundwork for fleshing out Vulcan society, and sort of elevating the creation of the race, right? Wow, that sounded weird when I said it, but anyway, right, like I really loved what they did with this sort of made up planet, and they breathed a lot of life into the different types of Vulcans, and they also really brought out this sort of like underlying disdain that is frequent in Vulcans for humans, and I think that is absolutely right. And they played it up here, and I think they played it up really accurately and well. That the father wants to attach his family to this prestigious Vulcan family, and the mother is like, no, this prestigious Vulcan family has human DNA in it, and so that sort of interplay I thought worked, right? And you've got the father being sort of like a much more laughing Vulcan, right? Like easygoing, willing to explore, and we've seen Vulcans like that in Enterprise.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, right, I'm fine with this. And we've also seen a little bit of that sort of Vulcan in DS9 with like the baseball episode. Anyway, but then you also have the more traditional like Stern Vulcan and the mother. It worked for me.
Yeah.
I didn't mind that, right? I
Yeah.
also think they nailed when the mother is like, "You've completed this. I'm fine." It goes back to Star Trek 2009, right? And it like echoed some of the like greatest moments in that. Um, with the Vulcan Science Academy
Mhm.
for Spock and that, right? And I was like, oh man, like that's spot on. You know, it reinforces character development that we've seen in other Star Trek with the same characters. It is sort of a, an area that I wouldn't mind seeing explored more, right?
Mhm.
Like I don't mind with them exploring Spock dealing with his human side,
Yep.
right? I I mind it when it's a stupid joke. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was lots of shit. I mean, I have to say those the in-laws scenes in the quarters and stuff. I mean, I have to say, I think Anson Mount just made those scenes because there's one bit when like you come to say something and the mother-in-law starts and he just kind of puts his face in his drink and turns and it just totally made me laugh. And the whole charades thing with the with the and he says here and all of this, I
Yeah.
just thought
Yeah.
all of that did amuse me, silly as it was. It did amuse me. So I didn't actually mind that stuff. And they tried to use the ensemble this week.
It did.
Do you know it was really weird for me to see Uhura wearing a normal Starfleet uniform and not the scant dress thing? It just I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, but yeah, I mean that's what the brain is used to, right? Um,
Yeah.
the solution to this was all a bit nonsense as well, I thought. But here's the thing. Here's something. This is where I did face palm, right? I really did. And again, this is almost J.J. Abrams' Kelvin Star Trek is almost partly to blame for this as well. Is the fact that something they've done is they've sort of in recent years they've turned Spock into a more romantic character. And yes, I know thousands, hundreds of thousands of women, or sorry, not even women, people um,
Good correction.
fancied Leonard Nimoy and found the Spock character attractive. I get that, but Spock was never, apart from one or two episodes where things happen, but Spock was never kind of a romantic lead in those shows. He was the scientist, the clever guy, all of that sort of stuff. And obviously, we had Spock in the Kelvin timeline in a relationship with Zoe Saldana's Uhura and stuff. And we kind of, okay, fair enough. It's a different timeline. Things played out differently. And I know in the original series, there had been hints about Spock and Nurse Chapel. But the thing, it's funny because this is both what I thought was the best part then led to the biggest problem. So when Christine comes and interrupts the dinner and they go into the restroom or whatever, and she's got the hypo spray thing to immediately cure him. That part was so nicely written, directed, and acted by them both that it did actually almost like I found I was welling up. And this is where I say I'm so torn by this. So it got to me emotionally, that bit. And he was just about to say something, and she apparently this hyperspray was going to work instantaneous, and even though his ears weren't going to grow back just yet, his emotions and everything were going to be instantaneous. And I thought the way they played it and the way they did that was great. And then I did like the way he stood up for his mother and revealed that. And it's great that, you know, Sarek is mentioned, but of course it would have broken canon if we'd seen him prior to Journey to Babel, because that's, you know, they haven't spoken for years, come that, etc., etc. But then you get the last scene where she comes to his quarters, and they basically, you know, obviously he's on a break now from T'Pring, which makes it okay, right? And obviously that again ties into canon, because by the time we get to a mock time, you know, they've been separated for a while, and the Ponfar comes round, and you know, all that lore works there. But the fact that we're now exploring an actual relationship and a physical relationship with you know, two very attractive young actors, you know, don't get me wrong, but it sucks that it went there for me, because I think the whole unrequited love, the will they, won't they, is far more interesting drama. And yeah, I face palmed when in that last scene when she kisses them and you see them sort of fall over as if they're, you know, obviously we know what's going to follow, right? And I'm just like, no, why have they done that with these characters? That doesn't, you know, that's trying to appeal to young, sexy stuff rather than Star Trek canon. And so that's me. Sorry, I'm waffling again, but I want to know what your thoughts on that were. Because as I said, I thought the emotional beat before it really served the episode well, but I don't like where they concluded with it.
I totally agree. You know, I didn't rewatch that TOS episode, right, where Chapel and Spock are sort of hinted at.
I haven't. No, I haven't seen it in years, but I'm aware of it.
Like, I remember watching it, you know, a couple of times years ago, right? And so I just feel like they're, like you said perfectly, you know, they're veering from established timelines so they can tell this story, and I don't love it. I much preferred the sort of exploration of friendship that was going on before then.
Yeah, I would, you know, personally, I would rather it, you know, have just been one of those things that, you know, like happens in life, that sometimes because of circumstances, you know, they don't get together. And I would have actually preferred that. I also think it would have been interesting if, I don't know how they would have done it exactly, but if throughout the series, I think just based on what happened in the Kelvin timeline, I think it would have been interesting if there was a bit of an awkward love triangle between Chapel, Uhura, and Spock. You know, and nothing happens with anyone, but it's just hinted at there and stuff. I just, you know, if they're going to sort of go there, I would have rather something like that than full on, you know, we're having a relationship with these two characters from original canon stuff now. And I don't know, I just felt it was a step too far for me. That was just
still plenty of time.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, it's great they're exploring the characters, but do we need, I don't know, funny episodes? Well, I'm funny with funny episodes. Oh, have you got to go? Okay. No? All right. When we do these, yeah. So viewers, sorry, Pete's had to mute.
Sorry.
That's all right. You're doing this from work, right?
Yeah. And it's fine. We're done.
Cool.
Let's keep going.
Yeah. So I mean, it's obviously one thing it has done is you know, built a lot of discussion here this week. I can see how people would enjoy this episode, but I can also see how people will be. I think it's going to be a divisive episode because I think people will either love it and buy into the entertainment factor of it, which as a piece of entertainment works, but for someone who likes the more serious side of Star Trek and is more sort of wants this to be a prequel to what comes and all of this, I just think they pushed it a little bit here, and it almost feels like one of those sort of fan shipping storytelling things rather than a actual episode that could have believably happened. For me, I don't know.
Yeah, I want to disagree with you about what did you say? Like the
I don't know. I love it when you disagree. That's the point of this. Yes, this is why we don't talk first. Yeah. Sorry.
You said something along the lines. I can't remember what you just said, but about how it worked for you on some levels, and I think it really didn't work for me on a lot of levels. But yeah, I mean, I really wish it was more. It is what it is, and what can I say? There's more.
We're stuck with it.
Yeah, I don't love all episodes of Star Trek. I really didn't love this one.
What I find so annoying here is how last season every episode was knocking it out of the park for me, and even the episode that I had a bit of a problem with, the end was so moving that I almost kind of forgave the rest of the episode. But this season, God, yeah, I mean, we're halfway through and I haven't really, apart from maybe last week's episode, I haven't loved anything yet. So, which is a real shame. But yeah. Cool. Anything you want to add, or shall we get into ranking?
No, let's get into ranking.
Okay. So we've got our ranked stripes for this season. Where are you at with this, Pete?
I know I've been sort of ranking fairly highly, but I think this is a lieutenant junior grade for me. I mean, it's not the absolute bottom of the barrel, but it's pretty close.
Yeah. It's funny, we haven't really been agreeing. And in fact, I think most of this season, my grades have been lower than yours, I think.
Yeah, it has.
Apart from maybe last week's. I think last week's we had I was slightly more pro it than you. But,
no, I think it was the other way, yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, well.
I don't remember.
I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to say this. I'm going to go lieutenant junior grade, the same as you. And it's just because I've got a bad feeling that I need to have somewhere to go lower, because I've got a bad feeling that there's going to be an episode coming that I'm going to hate even more.
I did the same math in my head. Yeah.
Oh God, because I know of something coming that it will either work or it won't, but I'm not optimistic.
I am not optimistic.
So yeah. Yeah. All right. Well,
all right.
Nothing to add then.
No.
All right, guys. Well, if anybody out there is watching and disagrees vehemently with us, we'd like to hear from you. So let's open a channel.
Excellent. So if you are watching this on YouTube, please find our podcast and subscribe and like and all that stuff. We're at LSWOT Cast on all social medias. It's Let's See What's Out There podcast. And you can drop us a line at lswotcast@gmail.com. If you want to find me, I am on Instagram at PMCMELE. Keith, where can people find more of you and your work?
Yeah, hi. So, you're already here on Home Media Minefield. As I said, please check out some of the other work. We've got playlists. I review Star Trek on physical media, for example. We've reviewed each episode of The Mandalorian here as well. So look at that stuff. But I also have another channel, which is British Isles. That's EYLES, as in my last name. And there are a series of short films that I've written, produced, and directed on there. Please check that out. That would be amazing if you can. And that just leaves me to say thank you to all of you for watching, if anybody is indeed watching. and thank you to Pete for joining me on this as always. And we will see you next time on
Let's See What's Out There.
Bye for now. Hit it.